Erling Haaland earned an estimated $80 million in a single year. That's roughly $2.54 every second, including every second he spends asleep. He's linked to a Bugatti reportedly worth £4 million, a 10-bedroom estate in Cheshire with a lake and stables, and a Hermès collection valued by fashion press at over $300,000. And none of that is the interesting part. Because the strangest thing about Haaland's money isn't what he buys. It's how little of it sits still. Behind the supercars sits a Luxembourg holding company, a portfolio that has quadrupled in 2 years, equity in 5 different businesses, and his own father inside the machine. In this video, the family office hiding behind the Viking, the biggest thing he spends on, which is not a car, and the detail about the name of his company that tells you exactly how he sees himself. Keep that name in mind. It comes back at the end. Hit the like button early. If the story doesn't grab you, you can take it back at the end. Deal. Let's start with the 80 million. Forbes put Haaland's income for the last 12 months at $80 million, $60 million from football, $20 million from endorsements. That makes him the 19th highest paid athlete on earth, 5th among footballers, and the highest paid athlete in the world, aged 25 or under. In January 2025, Manchester City tied him down until 2034. When that contract expires, he'll be 34. The club never published the wage. British press reports a base around £500,000 a week, near $27 million a year before bonuses. One correction, because it appears in almost every video about him. The $63 million fee City paid in 2022 went to Borussia Dortmund, not to Haaland. So where does $80 million a year actually go? Start with the answer nobody makes thumbnails about. Tax. The Sunday Times tax list credited Haaland with around £16.9 million in UK tax in a single year, the youngest person on the country's list of biggest taxpayers, and the largest taxpayer of any Premier League footballer. His documented tax bill is bigger than his charity, his watches, and most of the cars people obsess over combined. That's the first honest answer to where do the millions go? A very large share of them never reaches him at all. Now the part that makes him different from everyone else in this series. Haaland doesn't just have an agent and a few sponsors. He has a structure. At the top sits a Luxembourg company called Pillage 2, which by the end of 2024 held around €29.5 million in assets, up from $12.8 million a year earlier. And here's the detail that tells you everything. Only about €79,000 of that was sitting in cash. The money isn't parked. It's deployed. Underneath that sits Pillage 3, the investment arm. Watch the trajectory. End of 2023, 85.5 million Norwegian kroner. End of 2024, 223 million. End of 2025, 367 million. More than quadrupled in 2 years, with over 40 million kroner in pre-tax profit last year alone. And to be precise, because it'd be easy to sell you a fantasy, that isn't a 300% return. Last year, the portfolio grew by 144 million, while profit was 40. The rest is new money going in, salary and endorsements fed into the machine, quarter after quarter, which is arguably more telling than a lucky trade. The conversion of income into assets is systematic. And what does he buy? His first publicly spotted Norwegian investment was 200,000 shares in Urhug Autoliners, a shipping company that moves cars across oceans. Since then, oil services, biotech, shipping, finance. And in March 2026, the fund sold out of 3 positions entirely. This isn't a trophy portfolio in a drawer. It's rebalanced. And he isn't clicking buttons in the dressing room. His father Alf-Inge sits inside the structure. A former Norway international named Egil Erstenstad holds financial and executive roles, and there are Luxembourg advisors above them. Officially, nobody calls it a family office. Functionally, that's exactly what it is, and Haaland is 26. Which leads to the pattern that defines him financially. Where most footballers take the endorsement check, Haaland increasingly takes equity. A Hyperice, the recovery tech firm, investor and global football ambassador since 2021. The brand called it his first stake in a company. Kknekki, the Norwegian hair tie brand, he was already wearing them constantly, so he bought a piece of the company, and his collaboration sold out. DB, the Norwegian bag maker, strategic investor since 2025. And then the strangest one. In March 2026, he co-founded Chess Mates with Morten Oborga, and it took a 25% stake in Norway Chess. Not a sponsorship, ownership of a tournament brand launching a world championship tour that Hyperice has approved for a minimum of 16 years, with a floor prize pool of $2.7 million a season. His explanation was almost a description of his own finances. Chess sharpens your mind. You have to think several moves ahead. Strategy and planning are everything. And how did the world find out he was involved? He turned up to a Manchester City match wearing a Norway Chess cap, days before the announcement. To be fair, his commercial empire is still the smaller half. 75% of his income remains football. The roster is huge on paper: Nike, a Brightline, Dolce & Gabbana, Beats, EA, Visa, plus a deal representing the Norwegian seafood industry running to 2028. But treat the quoted 20 million a year Nike figure with suspicion, because Forbes puts his entire off-field income at $20 million. The real commercial story is what's coming. The Forbes window closed on the 1st of May, before the World Cup. And at that tournament, Haaland scored 7 goals, dragged Norway to a quarterfinal in their first World Cup since 1998, and gained 32.1 million Instagram followers, the biggest gain of any player there. 80 million a year isn't his ceiling. It's his floor. So the visible spending. Property first, and notice the logic. A £6.2 million estate in Cheshire, 10 bedrooms, a lake, a pool, stables, a guest house, a treehouse. A €6.5 million villa in Marbella. An apartment in Oslo's Isamro at 35 million kroner, another in Frogner, and 2 flats in Ibrina, his hometown, where he bought the second one on the floor below the first. Known purchase prices total around £16 million, though that's not a portfolio valuation. But look at the map: work, recovery, home. He hasn't scattered houses across fashionable resorts. He bought a base beside his club, a place to decompress, and 2 flats in the small Norwegian town he came from. Then the cars, and here I'll be honest, because most videos won't be. The press values the collection at over £10 million, and there are 3 problems with that number. Some of the rarest cars were reportedly bought jointly with the Norwegian collector Ole Ertvag. Some may sit inside a shared company, One he and Ertwag run in Luxembourg held around 4 million euros in assets. And the collection lists you see are assembled from photographs, not from an ownership registry. What's reported? A Bugatti Tourbillon at around 4 million pounds, one of a planned 250. A Mercedes-AMG one at roughly 2.7 million, one of 275. A Maybach by Virgil Abloh, one of 150. A Ferrari Purosangue he drove to City's training ground this August. Notice the pattern: tiny production runs. These aren't just fast cars. They're collectible assets. And while we're demolishing myths, you'll read that Haaland owns 2 private jets. What his UK image rights company actually filed was around 2.1 million pounds invested in interests in 2 aircraft. An interest is not a jet. He flies privately and holidays on yachts off Ibiza, but using, part-owning and owning outright are 3 different things. So how does he actually live? Here's the contrast that makes this whole story work. A man earning $80 million a year says he doesn't keep a permanent private chef. In his own YouTube video, he made his own breakfast coffee with maple syrup, fried eggs, fresh bread, trained in his home gym, worked with a physio, used a red light device, then drove to a local farm for steaks, raw milk and honey. His explanation: he's lived alone since he was 16, so he learned to cook. The recovery routine around it is relentless. Sauna and ice baths 4 to 5 times a week, a hypoxic chamber at City's facility simulating altitude, morning daylight, blue light glasses at night, meditation, sleep treated as non-negotiable. 2 corrections, because they're repeated everywhere. The 6,000 calories a day figure isn't a confirmed constant, and the $60,000 home cryo chamber isn't verified. The altitude chamber belongs to the club. The luxury that's confirmed is oddly modest by superstar standards. He's a Dolce & Gabbana ambassador, wears Loewe, Chanel beanies, Hermes. But those valuations are estimates from photographs, and brands hand athletes watches constantly, so a Richard Emile on a wrist proves nothing. The one price we can stand behind is his own Breitling chronomat, meteorite dial, 500 pieces, around $10,800. That's the signature watch of the highest paid young athlete on the planet. Oh, and after the World Cup, he spent about $750 in Dallas on a taxidermied raccoon that holds a bottle, then ran a poll asking his followers to name it. Now, remember the name of the company. Pillage. In English, plunder. The word Vikings are famous for. It's a joke about where he's from, and it fits how he plays. But here's how the story closes. In March 2026, Haaland and his father spent 1.3 million kroner at auction on a 1594 edition of the Sagas of Snorri Sturluson. The Norse texts themselves, a Norwegian auction record for a book. And then they gave it away to the library in Hyperice on permanent public display in the town where he grew up. The company is named after Viking plunder. The actual Viking treasure he bought, he handed to his hometown. And that's how Erling Haaland spends his millions. He pays an enormous tax bill. He converts what's left into shares, property and company stakes through a structure his own father helps run. He collects a handful of cars built in runs of a few hundred. He buys steaks from a farm and makes his own eggs. Every other fortune in this series bought a lifestyle. Haaland mostly buys assets at 26, with a contract running to 2034. He earns like a global superstar, spends like a collector, invests like a Scandinavian family office, and eats like a farmer. So tell me in the comments, is this the smartest financial operation any active footballer is running? Or does a man this rich, this young, spending this carefully just make for a boring billionaire? And across the whole series now, Neymar, Zlatan, Mbappe, Ronaldo, Messi, Ronaldinho, Salah, and Haaland. Whose money was spent best? The other breakdowns are already on the channel.